Sharks fans! My name is Jacob Boyd, presenting today the San Jose Sharks season roundup, along with some expectations for the Sharks roster coming up. Getting right into it, I'm going to start off by saying the San Jose Sharks 2023 team won't be all that good. But I do want to preface in saying that the Sharks team might surprise a lot of people, even without having the big names like Erik Karlsson and Timo Meier. I say this in two lights. One light being the offensive depth is much better than last year, and number two, I think that the defensive upside is going to be, really good. And I think the defense is going to be a lot better than last season. I'm not saying that the offensive depth or defenseman is going to be all that good, but you will see a more defensive game. If these things transpire, I still think this team could be a bottom five team. Don't get me wrong. This year as a Sharks will lack the prolific scoring talent with, Meier and Karlsson not being there. But Sharks fans will see more of a spread out scoring lineup. And instead of it being just Karlsson and Meier getting the puck and doing all the work like you saw last season, you're going to see more of a team-oriented game. You're going to see multiple guys scoring. So if that doesn't happen, then you could get one of the worst teams in the NHL, and you could, write that off real quick. You want to see these things work out for the San Jose Sharks this year, but if they don't, they could be one of the worst in the NHL this year. I do think Mike Grier has actually improved the depth, offensive depth, with some of the signings and trades that he made this offseason. And I think it will surprise a lot of, Sharks fans, and not just Sharks fans, but hockey writers and just hockey fans in general. I think that this is going to be, something that a lot of people will be proved wrong. And I'm going to get into those signings here now. So moving on, I got the first signing, Mackenzie Blackwood. He's a goalie. He's 26 years old. He signed a 2-year, $2.35 AAV contract in which Mike Grier, I think, is hoping that he can reclaim his top goalie prospect status coming through the ranks early on in his career, as many scouts and many pundits alike thought he was, I would say, one of the best goalies in that 2025 draft class. So we're looking for him to, make a step, take the next step, and hopefully win out that job in training camp, as he'll be battling Kaapo Kähkönen for that number one goalie position. Next, we have Kyle Burroughs, a defenseman, 28 years old, signed for 3 years at $1.1 million AAV, where I think Mike Grier is turning to this signing and getting a veteran that has some NHL experience to come in and fight for that, third line D pairing, where you'll have multiple guys, vying for this position in training camp, like Radim Šimić, Burroughs, a couple younger guys in Gowenki. There's going to be a few guys in there that are going to really battle out for this last spot. But moving on, you'll have Fabian Zetterlund, a left winger, almost 24 years old now, signed for 2 years, $1.45 million AAV contract. He came over in the Timo Meier trade. I think we're hoping as Sharks fans to get Zetterlund's play like he did in New Jersey, as he, put up a good point production in the time being there in his first NHL season. But when he came over to San Jose, really was lackluster and didn't do the things that were needed to, you know, be a productive player. And hopefully he goes into the dirty areas, probably play on the fourth line, in and out of the lineup. But I do think he was signed because I think Mike Grier does see potential in him. Next, we have Giovanni Smith, right wing player, 25 years old, for 2 years, $800K AAV contract. Mike Grier, I think, expects Smith to battle with, you know, the likes of Zetterlund, LeBanc, Carpenter, Borderlow, and Lindblom for that last and final lineup forward spot. So that will be pretty much, you know, an opening camp battle, opening training camp battle that we're likely going to want to see. He's most likely, though, going to be in the AHL with the Barracuda to start the season. And, you know, if they don't transpire, you know, the people that make the team doesn't transpire out to you know, do well, then he might come in and give a boost, or may need him to be a physical presence, you know, in that fourth line. Next, we have Nathan Todd. He's a center. He's 27 years old. We signed him for 2 years, $775K AAV contract, which I think Mike Grier most likely signed him to give him AHL minutes and help the Barracuda get into the playoffs as an experienced veteran. I don't know much about what he can bring to an NHL team, but look for him to be in the AHL. Next, we got Scott Sabourin. He's a right wing 31-year-old who signed for 2 years, $775 AAV contract, and is in the same boat as Nathan Todd. Next, we have Philip Zadina, right wing, 23 years old. We signed him for a 1 year, $1.1 million AAV contract. I think Mike Grier is giving him this prove-it deal to a guy that has largely underperformed in his time with the Detroit Red Wings. But this kid was a number 6 overall pick, guys, in the 2018 draft for a reason. And that was because he had all the talent in the world with an elite shot, and he could skate like the wind. His deking ability is top notch, but you know, unfortunately, we haven't seen it at the NHL level like we wanted to, or like the Red Wings wanted to. But we're hoping that the Sharks can get this player to come out of his shell and really take over the reins and eventually be a top line player. I think that Mike Grier and Coach Quinn will give him all the, you know, opportunity, and let's see if he can run with it. I look forward to this kid coming in. Next, we have Ryan Carpenter, center, 32 years old, signed for 1 year, $775K two-way deal, which I think Grier knows he can play a tough physical style game. He's played a ton of big minutes in the NHL playoffs in years past for the Vegas Golden Knights. He obviously has played with the Sharks before. He was kind of younger when he played for the Sharks, but yeah, you know, if Sharks fans know him, he does play a tough physical game. He'll most likely come to training camp and vie for that last, you know, fourth line spot, like I've been saying, with a lot of other tweeners in the NHL, AHL Barracuda, and we'll see where the chips fall with Carpenter, but I believe he starts with the AHL Barracuda this season. Next, if I were to give a grade for Mike Grier's first real free agency, some can call it his second, but his first was where he's really thrown it in the fire, and he got hired right before free agency last season. So really his first full free agency that he got to kind of scout players and do what he could. But I give him a letter grade of a C. I think a lot of Sharks fans and other writers might think that's even higher than what they might expect, but I don't mind this. I think getting Filip Zadina at the end there was a real plus for this, and it kind of went from a D plus to a C in my eyes because of that. I think it's also a C is because I believe the Sharks got NHL starting caliber goalie Mackenzie Blackwood, which is only 26 years old and on a team-friendly contract. So that was one point. And then the next point I have is Filip Zadina again. He could be a future all-star if he lives up to his potential. Then you got Burrows, the depth third line D pairing, who most likely starts from day one. But it also just gives Coach Quinn the option to, run him out there on a nightly basis. And if so, for that reason, I don't have it higher. Reasons that I don't have it higher, though, than a C would be because Grier signed a bunch of NHL, AHL tweeners, like I said. But I can't fault Grier for that because I don't think Mike Grier really knew that he was going to get 3 NHL, quality players back in the Erik Karlsson trade. And that happened at the end of the season, so all signings were really complete by that point. This made it for just more competition, but in hindsight, I think Grier wouldn't have signed the Todds, the Sabarins, the Carpenters like he did. But those guys give Coach Quinn some tough and physical players that they didn't have before. So kind of where I stand in that, the acquisition portion. Moving on to the key subtractions of, the 2023, it was the end of 2022, early 2023. James Reimer left, the goalie. He had a terrible 2023 campaign, and many thought, though, that he had a pretty decent 2022 campaign with the Sharks. A lot of people, obviously hindsight's 2020, but I thought they could have got him at the trade deadline of 2022 and got something back for him in maybe the 3rd or 4th round. But, that's hindsight. Obviously, you weren't going to be able to trade him at the 2023 deadline because he just didn't have a good enough season. But my question for Sharks fans, I want to ask all Sharks fans, is he going to be the next Adin Hill? I know Sharks fans would be pissed, but I think if the Red Wings are playoff contenders, I think Reimer might be a key backup on a much improved Red Wings roster. Well, he is the backup, but if say their number one got hurt and Reimer can come in and do what Adin Hill did, I don't see it being far-fetched because, I think the Sharks were so bad last year that it just was that Reimer was bad because of the defensive ineptitudes. But that's just my take. I'm leaving it out there to Sharks fans to see what their take is on that. Obviously, the next guy is the biggest name, Erik Karlsson. No one will give the Sharks a 100-point season this year, but maybe the Sharks will be better defensively now that he's gone. The question is, who will up their point production on the blue line this coming season? And then last but not least, I'll include the Timo Meier in this list because he left at the last year's trade deadline, and obviously his scoring production will be missed. The Sharks scoring will need to be, a depth committee scoring, like I said earlier. And you just hope that Anthony Duclair can fill in that big void that will be missing with Timo Meier not in San Jose this season. All right, moving on to whom the Sharks or who they acquired in this year's offseason via trade. Mackenzie Blackwood I put in the signed category, but the Sharks did give up a 6th round pick in 2023 draft, which I think is a steal for the Sharks, even if he didn't end up producing, because generally 6th rounders never make the NHL unless a team is really just lucky and hits a needle in a haystack. Anthony Duclair is the next big move Mike Grier made, in which the Sharks only gave up a 2025 5th round pick and Steven Lorentz, meaning the Sharks took on Duclair's 1-year, $3 million AAV contract and traded away a $1,050,000 AAV contract in Steven Lorentz's 1-year contract. Meaning Grier just took on just under 2 million AAV for a top 1 to 2 line player, and gave up a 4th line player, all in giving out just a 5th round pick. So I believe that this was Grier's best offseason addition, and I can't wait to see what Duclair can do with either Hurdle or Couture's line, and hopefully he can put in about 25 to 30 goal plus season. So that is my top move for Grier. An under the radar trade that was made from Mike Grier was trading Artemi Knaizev, who was a D-man in the Sharks young D-core, to the Winnipeg Jets for Leon Gawenke, who's another defenseman. A lot of people say this was an AHL swap, which it could end up being, but when all is said and done, many believe that Gawenke could in the future make this NHL roster, either out of training camp or into the future this season. I'm expected to really look forward to the camp battles this year for this final D pairing, and Gawenke will be in the mix. Last trade I have, the 3 players we acquired in the Erik Karlsson trade, which were Mike Hoffman, Jan Rutta, and Mikael Granlund. Not getting into the trade too much, I wanted to add that Hoffman and Granlund have scored 69 goals in a season before. 69 points in a season before, and both have been prolific scorers at one point in time in the NHL. And so Sharks fans just hope they can hit like around 40 point production mark, and that will be just fine for them. Then as long as Jan Rutta can play a physical game and keep the puck out of the net like he's done throughout his career, that is a recipe for success, and Mike Grier could turn what a lot of people are calling a bad trade into great pieces at this year's trade deadline. So that's what you're really hoping for coming forward for the Sharks team. Overall, I'm going to give Mike Grier's offseason trade acquisitions a B-. I'm a lot higher on Grier's trades than a lot of Sharks fans and pundits around the league, but we will all come to find out who was right, who was wrong, and maybe even as soon as this year's trade deadline, we'll see, if the Sharks won out on those trades, because we'll expect, either Mike Hoffman, Jan Rutta, or Mikael Granlund to be moved. Moving on to the 2023 NHL draft class, I think that's going to tie everything into the roundup here. It's going to be starting off with the first rounder, 4th overall pick, Will Smith. This guy is going to be the Sharks' future top line center. Just no questions about it. We're all looking forward to Will Smith and seeing what he can do at this year for Boston College. The next, we had another first-round pick, 26th overall, Quentin Musty. I believe this kid will score 30-plus goals in the NHL multiple times, and I can't wait to see what this guy can do at the next level. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do at Sudbury, with the Sudbury Wolves this year as well. Then we picked in the second round Kasper Halttunen. He's an elite shot, but can he skate at the next level? Will he, be a Sharks prospect that will make a team in the future? I do think he can. I think it's going to be around the third line winger aspect though. But Kasper Halttunen is going to be somebody to look out for with that rocket of a shot. Next, we have third round pick Brandon Svoboda. We traded up to get this kid, but many think that the Sharks reached on him. I thought he looked good in the prospect scrimmage at Tech CU, but I'll be tracking his development. Next, we have fourth round pick Luca Cagnoni. Many believed as a first or a second round talent. His size really just made him slip in the draft. I can't wait to see this guy's development. But he also had a great prospect scrimmage at Tech CU. And next we have fifth round pick Axel Landon, upside D-man who plays in Sweden's development league, right under the SHL. Hopefully he can make strides this season. Already, 3 assists in 3 games played over in Sweden on his Sweden club team. Next we have fifth round pick Eric Polkamp, a super exciting young D prospect who also, again, looked good at the Tech CU prospect scrimmage game. Next, we have 7th round pick David Klee. Don't know much about him. Then you got 7th round pick Igor Ramashevsky. He's playing in both the NHL and KHL this year. He has 5 total points in 10 games played. So you could check him out there. All in all, my draft rankings for Mike Grier to round this out is for the draft itself is an A-. I really think Mike Grier did a really good job with this year's draft. You can really tell he put in his homework. Another thing, I think he got 2 high-end talents in this year's draft. A few steals sprinkled in, and some late round 4th and 5th rounders that I love. Let's see how they pan out though. Obviously draft, picks are, sometimes a dime a dozen, and the Sharks, after the first round, really have not ever hit on their, drafted players for like since Timo Meier. So we'll see what happens. But with this off-season acquisition, with the trades that they made, with the subtractions that had happened, and now training camp coming up right around the corner, I think San Jose will have more wins than they totaled last year. They totaled 22 last year. I believe that they get 27 wins this year. I do think that they'll have more losses, in 47 losses, and they only have about 8 OT losses, as we had like 16 last year. But I'm projecting them at 62 total points, whereas last year they totaled 60 points. Obviously better than last year's total by approximately 1 win. Meaning the Sharks will be better than last year though. But look for them to finish in bottom 5 next year again. Sharks fans, it's going to be a rough season. Obviously, we all know that, but it's going to be slightly better than last. Well, that's going to be it for me with this episode of San Jose Sharks 2023 season roundup. If you enjoyed this content, please like, comment, and subscribe. You can view me on all socials such as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. But thanks again for watching, Sharks fans. Peace.